for I would say exactly 5 minutes, I told Joy I might have to go back on my hate for this movie. When her head came off and it was flying around the room, I was like, this movie
I'm
is
talking
an
about.
A+.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick. I'm a director living in Taiwan, and today I'm here with Tumba Child. Tumba is an illustrator and expert at Chinese painting.
Expert.
Yeah,
Working on it.
Becoming an expert.
There we go.
So today we are going to be talking about a classic horror comedy kung fu film called Mr.Vampire. Mr.Vampire is a film from Hong Kong, and it's about these Chinese zombie vampire things. They are a lot like a zombie, but they have their own rules that I think Western zombies or even Western vampires don't follow. So the film is about a kind of like a priest whose job it is to bury dead people. He gets a commission from a very rich guy to dig up his ancestor and rebury him, and the ancestor becomes a zombie, and then a lot of slapsticky kind of comedy stuff ensues. I personally really liked the movie, and I really loved like the slapstick, and I thought that the kung fu and like the choreography was really good. What did you think of it?
It was fucking trash. Okay, I'm gonna go off and go the opposite direction as you. Right off the bat, I was like, okay, let me go with this. You know, I was like, let me see what's going on.
Yeah.
Now, one of my first problem with the movie is I think what you did is you semi-sold it as a kung fu movie. This is absolutely.
Okay, so I misrepresented it.
Like this is like maybe 1% kung fu, and if it's any kung fu, it's trash. So
Really?
oh yeah, it's garbage. Like compared to other kung fu movies with
Sure.
choreography.
Okay.
With like cool choreography and like action going on, there's very little of that, at least in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess to say it's kung fu is probably a miss. It's more of like a comedy film where it's like slapstick kind of physical comedy rather than like actual kung fu stuff.
It's definitely got that. I mean, another thing that kind of disappointed me is how shitty it was. Because it says
I thought you would like that part of it. That's why I picked this for us to watch.
Okay, well, I'll get to my like an amazing part later and my style. But one thing that kind of annoyed me was the slapstick like comedy they were using. But it said 1985, and I'm like, but Jackie Chan's been around doing this way better. Since in the 70s.
You can't compare to Jackie Chan.
I'm not, but I'm just saying.
Jackie Chan is the GOAT.
He is the GOAT, but I was like, oh man, they have someone to learn from, and they're still this shitty.
And if you really want to hate on it even more, it's produced by Sammo Hung. I don't know if you know who that is.
I know that. Yeah, martial law boy.
And so he's like Jackie Chan's boy, and he produced it. And I think he did the choreography maybe as well. So he probably had a part in it. I feel like he
would do better than that shit. Like
I don't know. I think you're hating unnecessarily.
Okay.
I think that the choreography, even though it's not like the best, probably the actors that they picked maybe weren't up to like doing lots of crazy moves like Jackie Chan. But I think like the way they choreographed scenes and like the way that they did the stuff physically, like
it's not necessarily that I'm hating exactly on like the slapstick comedy that I saw.
Yeah.
Like the things that are meant to be what they are, I'm okay with them. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to like sometimes watch these kung fu movies or these old school movies and sort of like say, okay, I'm gonna separate the shittiness and say this is just how it is, and I'm not gonna be bothered by it. One thing. Didn't you find this weird? That just this one scene threw me off. So, the whole movie seems to be ancient China.
Right. Well, it's set in like the 1900s.
Okay, exactly. That's exactly the problem. So it's set in the 1900s, and then they're like, "Hey, let's go meet this guy, the guy who's moving his father's grave."
Right.
And then let's go meet him at the American Tea House for Western tea. And they're like, "Yeah, cool." You get there, and it looks like restaurants in Taiwan right now.
Well, no, wait a minute.
Okay,
I gotta defend this because
go ahead.
That is the time period. It's filmed at a very interesting time period in Chinese history where it's like China was being westernized.
Okay.
And so like the 1900s is like the Qing dynasty or whatever, which is where a lot of movies are made in that time. And it's like there's a lot of Western influence and like the girls wearing like a Western dress and stuff like that.
That stuff I saw.
But
the inside, the way it was like designed and everything, I was like, this looks like 1985.
Okay, maybe. I should watch that again because I didn't notice that.
Like immediately when I was in there, I was like, because normally like I'm looking at this like in the kung fu movies, because I like Chinese painting, I'm usually looking at what they have on the wall and what they're doing and the way they did it. And I'm like, those look like frames from like, like old Chinese
Okay.
restaurants that I would see now. And I was kind of like, this looks like they just took 1985 and they were like, let's do it looks like a 1985 restaurant. And I was thinking, this doesn't match, at least in my opinion.
Okay.
I mean, it's a small
Interesting
gripe.
point.
It's a small gripe.
No, those are the kind of details we like on this channel.
Hey, there we go. so that was one thing. And then please explain to me and like help my confusion with, so they're moving the grave.
Yep.
And then when they're leaving, just randomly, the guy sees the girl. He's like, she's hot. And then they throw the girl into the story. And I'm like, wait, it's a zombie movie. Now they've just introduced a ghost girl who's going to be attacking this guy.
It's kind of like a B plot. Like, I liked it because I liked it. It's like a TV, they made it kind of like a TV show or something where it's like there's an A plot and a B plot.
In the back of my mind, I kept thinking, why did they just introduce her randomly like this? And
Because he's in the graveyard and the ghost sees him in the graveyard.
okay, fine. So there's a very loose connection. And then I thought maybe at the end, her and Vampire are going to sort of team up.
And fight together or
and then it's
something?
going to be like a mega fight,
That would be pretty hot, actually.
Well, I was hoping for that. And then that was out. So I was like, okay, that's fucking weird. Continuing on, at least let me get to my favorite part. So last night I was watching this, and then I'm with my wife, and I'm like, oh, I'm watching this movie to like do the review with Nick, and she's like, okay, cool. And then I stopped at this one part, and I'm like, okay, I gotta show her this part. This is the part after he's already met the girl once, and he's gone back to her house the second time.
Yeah.
And then he opens the shirt, and then she's like, I don't like that. And then like all this actual kung fu shit kind of happens. And then your man's outside the window, and he's like, oh no, I need to see her real face. And he goes and he grabs the leaves, and he's like,
dude, that was
and he's
awesome.
like, shing, and these amazing sound effects, and the eyes light up, and I was like, holy shit. For I would say exactly 5 minutes, I told Joy I might have to go back on my hate for this movie. When her head came off and it was flying around the room, I was like,
That's
this
what
movie
I'm
is
talking
an
about.
A+.
Like that kind of stuff I loved. I thought the effects, I love like the cheesy effects in the movie.
Me too.
Where like they're drawing the lines on the coffin to like hold the vampire in, and then like glow lights up, like that kind of stuff.
Love that.
All those old effects in this movie are, for me, just like A tier. I love seeing like effects that are cheesy in that way.
I love the idea of how creative they are.
Yeah.
Like you have to go and like put the strings around the coffin, and I love that like later on the guy's like, here, get the chicken blood, bring the ink, and then and they put it on the thing, and when the zombie comes up, they pull the string and it goes, psh, and when it hits him, he flies back, and I'm like, these are amazing creative effects that make you think like it's just a string. But the way you make it look is like it's so lethal.
Yes.
And I fully appreciate that, but there wasn't enough.
Okay, well, this goes into the second thing that I really like about the movie is that, and I think for a Western audience viewing the film, if they haven't seen it before, it's a pretty cool thing to watch because it has a lot of like monster lore that's different from what we know. So like we know zombies, we know vampires, and we know like, oh, garlic, blah, 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 all the rules. But this one has all these weird rules that we don't know for Chinese zombies, like sticking the paper on the forehead, or using the string, or like the rice, like burns its feet or whatever. And like my favorite thing is the holding the breath idea of like if you hold your breath it doesn't know where you are, because all those scenes have like this really fun comic tension where and it's such a cool idea because if you hold your breath you're gonna have to breathe again at some point.
Right.
So I like that idea in the movie where like they're holding their breath but you know they're gonna have to breathe, so there's like a lot of tension that comes in those scenes of like, oh, what are they gonna do when he has to breathe again, and he uses the tube to kind of like direct it around where he breathes in the tube. I think all that stuff is super creative, and I think that's why, in my opinion, this is a classic because it has all that fun, creative stuff that you don't see. You don't see that kind of stuff in movies anymore.
You don't. You're right. There's a lot of things you don't see in movies, and no, I agree with you. Like, I would love to see some of this cheese come back. I think like the problem for me is that whenever I was like getting my hopes up or my expectations up, I was like, oh, like at the ending when the other dude from the beginning shows up with all of his uncles, and he's like, yo, boys, get him, and he's like, and he's ringing the bell. I'm like, yo,
zombie fight.
I'm like, this shit's about to go off, and then the zombies like start attacking him, and I'm like, this is like Voltron or something when you bring out your robot and you're like, go get him, and then his bell breaks, and then they all catch on fire, and I'm like, well, that's a failed chance.
I actually agree with you on that.
Yeah, man, I wanted to see them take him down or something.
Like a bigger kung fu fight. Okay, so we had a little bit of a difference of opinion, but what's your score, ultimate final score for this movie? Because you said there's some stuff you like in it, so it's not a 0. Out of 10, what do you give it?
Based on everyone saying it's a classic, and me using that scope to view it, it gets a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Based on my
Because it doesn't
assumption.
live up to the expectation.
Well, I mean, like, that's being generous because people told me it was a classic, and I looked at it through those eyes saying, well, I can see how maybe at the time this was creative, and my wife's telling me how she felt. She was scared at certain scenes, and
When you're a kid, okay, think about it this way. This is something I wanted to say. This, to me, this movie is like The Goonies for us. Where if you were to show The Goonies to somebody now who didn't have that background, they would be like, what is this stupid crap?
Of course. Yeah, well, actually, that actually goes perfectly because my wife hates Goonies.
See?
And I love it. And this movie, I was like, this is trash. And then we actually went back and watched some of the most busted scenes of that idiot dancing. Like remember when the master was like, if you stop dancing or you stop moving, then your body's gonna harden.
Yeah.
And then he's like dancing like an idiot and twerking. And then she was like, oh my God, this is so funny. And I was like, this is horrible.
For me, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10.
Oh, wow, that's a generous.
Yeah, it's
Hey,
a classic.
Agree to disagree.
right.
I'm okay with this.
All right, so thanks for watching. If you have a movie that you want us to review, let us know in the comments. If you want Tumba back to review other movies, I think I'll bring him in.
A real Kung Fu movie? Call me back. I'm in for that.
I think I want to bring him back for a lot of crap movies so he can, because it's fun to.
Just to hear me hate
Yeah.
and watch my blood pressure go up and get angry about thinking about that.
Resident hater.
There we go.
Remember to
That's my
follow
job.
him on
Instagram, Dirty Black Ghost, and Twitter. I barely post on there, but you might see me. And my awesome review channel, which is always coming and
I'll
going.
link it in the.
Check that view. Check that channel.
All right, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.
Peace.